Hey guys, what's up? Unrested here at the park with these two. Sorry if it's a bit loud in the background. Gotta let them play, gotta let them be wild. We also got some construction like right next to the park, so I don't know how much that's gonna mess with the sound. Nonetheless, I wanted to go ahead and just chime in on an article. There's actually two articles I wanted to chime in on. There's a famous actress, Takahata, whose 22-year-old son recently raped a 40-plus-year-old woman, and that's in the news. And a couple of viewers sent me that article along with a second article about 4 kids, although now it's been found out that 5 junior high school kids who murdered a fellow student. Both very kind of sad, troubling stories. With the actress whose 22-year-old son raped a 40-year-old woman, the worst part about it, and something I guess I really don't agree with, even though I guess this is just the Japanese way I should accept, is that she's had to make a big press conference for it and apologize to the press, and she has to pay like a bunch of like penalty fees. I'm not talking about legal fees like to hire a lawyer to defend her son or anything. She has to pay a bunch of negativity and penalty fees, as they're called, I guess they loosely translate, to the company that represents her for her different appearances on TV and in movies and stuff like that. So it'd kind of be like your agency that decks you out to different TV shows, movies, sitcoms, part-time shows. You would have to pay them a fee for causing negative publicity around your name and the company, which I feel like that's really unfair. I mean, am I out of line to say such a thing? I mean, she didn't actually do anything wrong. It was her 22-year-old son who is, I mean, he's a college graduate, he's a grown-ass adult. I feel like, you know, he should take responsibility and it completely should be on him. I'm sure there might be some stuff that has to do with her parenting that may have led to the way that he is, but I mean, we can't really place like 100% blame on her. Apparently he had a bunch of, I guess, undiagnosed mental disorders that were not properly taken care of. Like, she didn't actively seek out a lot of, I guess, mental health and care for him. She just kind of tried to do her best with what she knew and how Japan kind of handles mental health, which is they kind of really don't. They kind of just try to ignore it. They try to like sweep it under the rug, be like, yo, this never happened. Sadly, I see this happen a lot like in schools and stuff that I work at too. A lot of times there'll be kids who come in that are definitely on the autistic spectrum, which, I mean, they can actually learn to hone some of the autistic skills and Asperger's skills to work certain jobs in the future that they're really good at, especially if they're like mono savant on some sort of subject. But the parent will outright ignore the fact that they have this, even to the point of like refusing to take them to regular government checkups that are issued by the government for ages 1 to 3, and I think you have to go get it at 5 and 7. And they refuse to just, I mean, totally admit any kind of sort of developmental problem may be going on with their child, which is, I don't know, it's just it gives me such a mixed feeling sometimes. Like, I want to see Japan help itself. Like, I want to see it, you know, take control of some of the mental issues that go on here, and yet I see this kind of backwards thinking of like, if we just don't acknowledge it, it'll go away. I don't know, but then some people write into me in comments sometimes and they say things like, hey Scott, you know, why should those kids have to go to a different school? We can make them feel more regular by sending them to regular everyday public schools. And I mean, that's what Japan does. They actually, I mean, even severely mentally challenged kids go usually to regular public schools, elementary at least. I don't know, usually junior high school, I think they actually do stop them there, but there would be times where I'd be teaching a class and like I couldn't just tell by eye that the kid had some sort of strong developmental disability until suddenly when I would ask him, like, you know, a card as I'm going through different English cards, like apple, banana, and then one kid would just start like flopping on the floor and like screaming, and I'd be like, what did I do? And they'd be like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, he's just, you know, like, he has like, you know, severe like mental challenges and stuff like that, or there would just be kids like straight up wearing like, you know, there's like a special kind of almost like a wrestling helmet that they wear because they'll go into convulsions and stuff, which is I understand, but I also feel like they should get their own special care just for the fact that they could actually injure themselves due to their condition, but they would also be going to these normal public schools where there isn't a constant watch for that thing. Like, they're not trained around taking care of severely mentally or physically challenged kids. I mean, they are to a certain extent, but that is not their specialty. Whereas I feel like those kind of kids, to be properly raised and protected and kept safe and learning at a pace which helps them and benefits them the most, that's why that kind of special schooling is in place. I mean, I used to teach at these kind of camps during the summer when I did volunteer work in America during my high school years, and we had to be taught all different types of like special safety regulations and how to handle certain like convulsions, or why, even down to the fact of like, if a kid who is blind and mentally challenged would press his eyes, that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, that he was actually pressing the inside of his eyes to make like colors explode around the color cones inside their eyes to see things, and that we didn't actually need to stop them because it wasn't going to actually damage them or hurt them. So I mean, those minor things even are not taught to these kind of teachers who are doing these public classes, because really, I mean, it shouldn't be part of their necessary training, but I guess maybe it should if this is the kind of problems that eventually can come about later in life. I mean, if you're going to accept sending kids with severe mental challenges to regular everyday public schools, then at the very least you either need to have them assisted by people who are trained in that, or train the teachers more severely as far as how to take care of these problems. I don't know. I want to leave it up to you guys. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. The second one that I wanted to cover today was kind of a really sad story. There is a junior high school kid, I believe he was 14 or 15. Apparently all the other kids involved in his murder were around the same age, 14 or 15. It started out as only one kid being arrested for apparently messaging him and making him meet under this bridge where he was said to have hit him with rocks. They don't make it, as far as I could understand on the news story, I couldn't quite make out if they hit him with rocks or threw the rocks at him from close range. Either way, it was a way in which he was damaged with rocks. Eventually they figured out that there's no way just this one kid alone could have done it, so they eventually made him turn in his other friends who had helped him commit this murder. And I think what happened here is kind of the quote-unquote blameless crime, where everybody does a small part to injure a person and that person ends up dying, but nobody takes full blame because they think like, well, I'm not the one who did the blow that finally killed him. I'm not the one who hit him with the rock enough times. Yeah, but combined together, all those people, they did kill him. They're all equally guilty and they should all equally take the blame. But I'm thinking it's one of these kind of group situations where they're like, well, I'm not the one who did the finishing blow. But I mean, it's really a sad story. Apparently this kid had been bothered by them, or bullied by them, I really should say, for a long time, them forcing him to give them money to buy gasoline for their motorbikes, which you can drive at a very early age in Japan. I think you can drive as young as 15 or 14. You can drive little like mopeds and scooters around really early. And he tried to be as non-confrontational as possible, to the point that he eventually started staying home, and then they started to message him on line SMS and calling him a bunch, and finally saying like, you know, I'm sorry, I don't want to meet up, you know, because I don't want to fight with you guys. I want to just be friends. Like, I'm sorry I haven't given you any money, but I don't have any more money. My parents don't give me any more allowance. And they're like, that's fine, whatever, just come meet us under this bridge. And he finally did, and they went ahead and beat him to death with rocks, 5 different kids. He fell to the floor and began to convulse, and that's when they pushed his body into a river and were trying to make him swim, which obviously he couldn't do because he was, you know, somewhere between unconscious and having a convulsion. So, I mean, God, what a sad story. The kid's dead now. All these other kids' lives are gonna go, you know, into ruin because they're gonna go to jail, but because they're under the age of 20, which is a legal adult in Japan, it'll probably never be put on their permanent record. They actually will spend very, very little time in jail. But man, what a sad story. I feel so bad for that kid's parents. I can't imagine the level of anger I would have. I mean, what would you guys do if this happened to you? Like, if you found out some other kids had bullied your kid. At the same time, though, I kind of wonder where these parents' mind were at the same time. The kid who's went out to meet them, and the kids that met him under the bridge, they were all sneaking out like really late at night to do this, like midnight or something. I don't know about you, but I probably wouldn't let my 15-year-old or 14-year-old kid be running around town at midnight. You know, there's there's a reason your parents say stuff like nothing good happens after 9 p.m. or whatever it is in your town. I think it was like something like nothing good ever happens after 10 p.m. where I was in Florida. And I mean, it's kind of true. Like, why would you be out that late on a school night if you're a 14 or 15-year-old kid? Probably because you're getting in some kind of trouble. I mean, obviously there is JUCO that goes that late, which is cram school. It can sometimes go to 11 o'clock. But if I know you're at the cram school and I call your teacher and they say you're there studying, I know you're safe and okay. Anyway, guys, those are a couple of stories, and I want to hear your thoughts on them. I want to hear your feedback. How do you think these kids should be punished? What would you do if this happened to your kid? How would you, I guess, go vigilante or address the law in this situation? And also, what are your thoughts on mental health care in Japan? Until next time, I am Unrested with the questions you requested. That's Tiny Unrested Jr. I will see you next time.